Hi and welcome to episode 150 of the Phil Swallow podcast. Who'd have thunk? So it's a Milestone Edition. It's not something I consciously do on the anniversary date-wise, but I tend to just do things by the number of shows because I don't have a kind of very strict recording schedule. Today is being recorded on Saturday the 24th of June. Normally I'm midweek, but this week I had a few things on. And only last night made the decision to mark the celebration of the coming of the 150th episode by buying a new microphone. So I bought the Shure SM7B, which is a go-to microphone. It's used throughout broadcasting and loads of podcasters, loads of video podcasters, certainly some of them that I follow on YouTube use it. It's a brilliant microphone. You pay a bit more for that privilege, and hopefully the sound quality will be, up there going forward. I've not really had to do any processing. It's just the mic into the deck. So I'm really looking forward to how it comes across once I've done the kind of editing before the show goes out. It doesn't mean a lot to you guys. I did have to have the other mic in shot, which I mentioned, I think the show before last. It was kind of right here. This one's just off camera and it's still certainly in my headphones, and in the test recording I did earlier it's really coming across nicely, so that should be good. I've also added another light in because I think sometimes it's a bit dull, and put a white shirt on, so it's going to be dazzling you completely. The other thing is, I run the risk of telling you this and then it will take away your focus. I hope not. I hope it's an engaging show anyway. But I've got a ceiling fan going behind me. I don't think it's in shot. But anyway, there's a ceiling fan and it's on about the middle setting. If I switched it off, I would fry in no time and be steaming and sweating and all those nasty things. So I decided, I did a little test earlier on and off. It hopefully will be like a white noise, like my shirt, maybe. So new things. Now, one of the things about, buying professional gear is the ability for it to support you. Didn't the other Shure have a "it won't let you down" slogan? I think it was for their deodorant. But it's almost one of those arguments. You want to know that you're using a piece of gear that will serve you. That's the same with camera equipment, with audio equipment, with lights, and so on. There's the old kind of buy cheap, buy twice saying, well, the microphones that I was using before microphone, it's just I said plural because I've got two, they are designed to match to the deck. It's made by Rode. But I wanted to up my game because I'm doing these shows and hopefully the audience will grow with these going forward. But I'm also going to introduce some voiceover videos, starting with the Tokyo one, which I'm still working on. I'll explain more about that as we go through. And you want the best audio to go in. Audio is such a huge part of video because it's what, people tune into whilst watching the dialogue. And that's not just, the spoken voice. That can be, in films, think of the score and the effects and all that sort of stuff. So, yes. So anyway, 150 episodes, and this is the 150th. The show has covered a lot of ground in that time. When it first started, 2017, I was still in my old job. Then I went through developing the photography, started to get some paid work, and then did some headshot work and left my old job. Then we had COVID. And really the video has been probably the biggest change that's happened when I started to have a regular video publishing schedule from about 2021. Once we kind of had a bit more freedom, I suppose, to get out and about. And the channel's growing nicely and steadily. It's strange because I've not, other than these podcasts, I've not put out that many videos in recent times. Obviously, we've been away. But these subscriptions have gone up quite a bit in the last few days. And I think that's because my channel's not where you go for topical content. And I mentioned this before. But it's where you might go because you've just got an interest in the particular niche or niches that I cover. So appreciate however you arrive at the channel. And if when you've arrived at the channel you want to take a look at the podcast, then obviously you are most welcome. So the other thing, I guess, which has developed more recently is speaking engagements, and that's been where a lot of my time has been taken up. I'm going to deliver the Croydon Waterworks History, Illustrated History next week to the Sanderstead Local History Group. The week after, I'm delivering a more general one, although it's going to focus on a couple of stories for Hamsey Green. And then I think the next one or two are in September, and there's one in October, possibly, around about then. I've probably mentioned that before as well. But just to kind of also recap, in terms of, that I've touched on what my channel's about. So videos, it's obviously these podcasts, it's local history, it's travel. It's also the occasional consumer rant or consumer story, and I've found that they've been quite popular as well. Sometimes I'm going to talk a bit more technical, sometimes I'm going to talk a bit more general, because my life is a bit like that. We do kind of retiree things and day out things, but we also do things that relate to our careers. So Sue and I. So, but one of the other things I noticed recently, so you may or may not be aware, with YouTube, if your channel hits certain milestones in terms of subscribers and number of public watch hours is another metric they use, you can apply for monetization, which means you can get a share of revenue, and that's all relative. Sometimes I've seen people online where they say, well, a month on a monetized channel they got 48 cents or something. So you just don't know how these things actually play out in practice, but it's still nice to get something back. And what YouTube did recently, I'm conscious my light's flickering here, I'll bash it. What YouTube did recently was sort of introduced it was an all or nothing basically. When you got to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, you could apply for all these various different ways to monetize your channel. And as well as ad sharing, that could be having the ability to put thanks on your video, which I've now got. So you can hit thanks and maybe make a little donation, cup of coffee, more than one cup of coffee. But also there's other things like memberships, and you can have shopping and that sort of thing, which I don't really do on this channel. Never say never, but at the moment it is, as you see it. So what they did is that they changed the rules, if you like. So they said, well, from 500 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours, you can apply for certain tiers, but you don't get the ad share. That's the main one. There might be some other stuff, but you don't get the ad share. So I've switched on the super thanks, and I'll see how it goes. It does cost me financially and in time to put these together. It's what I love doing, but it still costs me time and money to put things together. Storage costs, for example, that there's a cost to running cloud storage and all that sort of stuff. And I like to know that all of the content that I create is fully backed up, both locally and remotely. So it's just those sort of ongoing costs. And it's nice to know that there's an avenue for some money to come in that way. And I will always be extremely grateful for anyone that makes a contribution, because it helps to, what's the saying? Helps to keep the lights on. So I've started off on that tier, and it was interesting because they invited me to apply, and they said there's one stage of the process might take 2 to 3 days. The other part of the process could take 2 to 3 months. So it was on Tuesday evening at about 10:30, 11 p.m. I thought, well, I'll just see how easy it is. And typically you're accepting terms and conditions and all that sort of stuff. And then I just hit submit. Thought, well, wait for a month, and just carry on regardless in the meantime. Less than 24 hours later, they said, you've been accepted. You are now a YouTube partner. So I'm still digging around as to what else that they can help me with. I think one of the things they can provide there is some more support, and that support might be in terms of how to grow your channel. So, no two channels are the same, but there will be certain general things that any YouTuber could do to help grow what they do. So watch this space, and hopefully you'll see how some of these learnings and these new practices will come out, and in terms of what I do. So that was good. So the first talk is pretty much ready to go. Every night when I put my head on the pillow, I think, yeah, I could just add that in or just add this in, but kind of got to draw the line really. And if loads of other things come out, then maybe that's a part 2. I actually think that with all my videos. I don't put a video out of Sanderstead, Wallingham, Purley, whatever, and think, well, that's it. I think that if there's enough for a part 2 or a spin-off for one aspect of those areas that I've covered that might have some public interest or local history interest, then I'll always have a commitment that I would look to do those as well. So, never say never. The second one is being worked on, as I mentioned. The Tokyo video, I'm getting there. So I took a huge amount of footage and stills in Tokyo, and I'm kind of working through that at the moment. I've put together a timeline. I'm now cutting it down. The term is cutting for a reason, because you're cutting out what's just not needed. Just making sure that I've got a nice flow for each of the subject areas. I've got some additional kind of hints and tips that we picked up that I'm going to add in. And as I say, I'm going to apply a voiceover to that video. Difficult to put a timing as to when it will be released, because I'm giving it a lot of focus. In an ideal world, in about 2 weeks' time, it should be ready to go. That was actually one of the other criteria from YouTube, was to have 3 video uploads in the last 90 days. Now, I think I've done that. Well, I had to have done that for them to accept me. But whether they include these, it is a video, and it's a podcast, but it is a video. So we'll have to see. It's not my call, it's theirs. The other thing is that it's really hot weather here. It's going to calm down a little bit next week, but it's been okay. It's just going to get humid this weekend, and I need to get out and do some gardening, because when we were away, the weeds took over a little, and I hacked them back with a strimmer, but I need to do some more work. So when I get some time, I will get in the garden, I promise. And not that it affects you guys, but again, not a hugely long episode. Thank you for listening in. I'm now off to see what this looks like from a technical perspective. So when I upload the video to Final Cut Pro, where I do my video editing, and the audio file to Audacity, where I put the audio only version of the podcast out, and just see how they look, see what the profiles look like compared with what I had before. Even though they both use a waveform for the video, they actually sound quite different when going through their own software programs, as you would expect. So what I try and do is put it together so that it's a sound that's really good quality, kind of radio quality. That's what I'm aiming for. And as I say, the initial listen for my fairly trained ear was that this microphone was doing a fantastic job, bearing in mind I've only just got it. So hopefully that will pan out, and you can tell me in the comments. That would be great. But thanks for tuning in and either watching or listening to the show. This was the Phil Swallow podcast, the Milestone Edition for 150 episodes. No cake required. And I'll speak to you again in the next episode.